Wednesday evening to you. Hope you're having a great week. Thanks for joining More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. We have the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff. We'll talk Browns, Indians, and some Cavs, along with some Hall of Fame voting with the D-Man. And we will also be joined by cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises later in the show. We begin tonight, though, talking Browns, as the Browns eliminated in that divisional round a couple of weeks ago. Looking ahead, trying to figure out how they build things out to get to the next step, get to that conference championship, as well as the Super Bowl. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. And Dennis, we kind of lamented against it last week, a missed opportunity. And when I was watching the Bills and the Chiefs, I was feeling kind of the same way. Missed opportunity for the Browns.
100% with you, Dave. I was sick to my stomach watching it. And I'm not saying that I automatically would have guaranteed that the Browns would have beaten the Bills in Orchard Park. That would have been a tough assignment, no question about it. But I just looked at this game and I said, there's no reason the Browns shouldn't be playing the Bills in Orchard Park, because the opportunity to defeat the Chiefs was when you got the break of a lifetime. And, Mahomes went down with a concussion in the second half. It was all there for Cleveland. And just having, seeing what Kansas City did with Buffalo, kind of toying with them for the most part, you recognize that, if you want to be real about it, at this stage of the Browns' development, they were going to be in serious trouble if they had to face Mahomes for 4 quarters. But the fact is they didn't face him for 4 quarters, and that's why I'm so bitter about it.
Well, the question then becomes, what's the blueprint? What's next? So how do the Browns get to the level that they need to get to be playing in that game and beyond, to potentially be going to the franchise's first Super Bowl? When you look at it, what's the blueprint to get there in your mind?
Well, Dave, it's always dangerous to look at one team and say, okay, I've got to beat this team, because who knows what will happen to that team maybe year over year, injuries, Mahomes gets injured or has a concussion. All of a sudden you're not facing Mahomes, and that blueprint to beat the Chiefs goes out the window. But what the Chiefs game showed, and what the Chiefs team shows when it plays, is how valuable speed is. Sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone. The Chiefs are a faster team for the most part than their opposition. And yes, Tyreek Hill, the receiver, sort of tilts that a little bit, or has an abnormal amount of speed. So he will, anytime you look at the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill playing, you're going to say they're fast. But overall, they're faster than the Browns. So I would say that's the one thing they really have to work on, is upgrading the speed on their team.
How important is improving the defense? And last year, they put in place the pieces around the quarterback. The thought is they're going to do that on the defensive side of the ball. Do you believe that? And how important is it to upgrade that side of the ball?
It's vital. I mean, obviously the Browns' strength this season was the offense, especially late in the year. And you could see the issues on defense that were either manifesting themselves early in the year, or not, yet manifesting themselves until later in the year. But there's holes that they're going to have to fill. I mean, you think about Olivier Vernon's spot. One of the interior guys is probably going to have to be filled there on the D line. The linebacking core, it's no secret the linebacking core needs an upgrade. With respect to whoever was there at the end of the year, the Mac Wilsons, the Takis. I'm not trying to diss those guys, but they definitely need at least one game-wrecking linebacker, at least one. Even in a 4-3, I want a linebacker flying around and able to rush the quarterback, able to cover. I don't know. I want Clay Matthews Jr., basically, from the 80s and 80s Browns teams. But they need help at linebacker, and then who knows in the DBs who gets healthy and who doesn't. But I think they need help defensively at all three levels.
You looked at the defensive line, and Myles Garrett played well when he was healthy. Wasn't healthy a good portion of the season after he came back from COVID, and then the oblique injury in the Chiefs game. Andrew Berry was willing to try to find a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, a veteran guy. Do you think that might be the road they go? There's some talk that the Broncos may be moving on from Von Miller. There's some talk that J.J. Watt may be a salary cap casualty. Do you think the Browns look to a guy like that on the defensive line?
It's entirely possible, Dave, but I would recommend against Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, we did that dance all last year, and he didn't wind up doing anything for who was it? Where did he wind up going?
Titans.
Whatever. What's that?
Titans.
Yeah, whatever it was. Titans. He didn't do much. So, but yeah, they could look for some sort of a splash there, some sort of a name. But I trust these guys. I trust this front office, and including Paul DePodesta, the chief strategy officer, to figure it out. But I never thought I'd say this based on the way his career began with Cleveland. But Olivier Vernon is going to be a difficult guy to replace because he really was, for my money, the best defender on the Browns in the second half of the year.
How much did that defense get hurt because, COVID, Garrett gets COVID, and then he was really never the same after that. I mean, he was on pace to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He caught COVID, and he just couldn't, he wasn't back to 100%.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, but here's the thing, Dave. Every team will say that COVID affected them in some way, shape, or form with personnel. I don't know the exact numbers of how many players on each team were COVID-ridden, but almost every team, if not every team, could say, I'm pretty sure, that they had key guys who got hit and had their strength sapped and had difficulty coming back. In the case of Myles, it did hit him. I mean, some guys were hit with mild cases. He told us about his case, which, sapped him of his breathing ability for the longest time. And you're right to observe that he really wasn't the same player upon his return. And I'm sure he thought, okay, in a couple of weeks, I'll be back to my usual self and I'll have my usual wind and my stamina. But I don't know that it ever really came back to him to the levels that he was pre-COVID. So that was a definite blow, no question about it.
The D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, and I are talking Browns football. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about some tough decisions, extensions, and guys that might be salary cap casualties for the Browns. More sports, and Levine will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. We're going to continue talking Browns football with the D-man, Dennis Manoloff. So, Dennis, we've agreed that the Browns need to upgrade, take that next step. Never easy to go from playoff contender to Super Bowl contender, if you will. And that's the jump the Browns are trying to make. It will involve some tough decisions. One decision that was made pretty easy by Baker Mayfield. Played well, they'll pick up that fifth-year option. The question is, at what point do you think they start talking extension beyond just picking up that fifth-year option?
As soon as it's prudent, because you're gonna sign him long term. It's just a matter of when, and you say, well, why don't you get it over with? I mean, they have their system, they know how to manipulate things, but I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Bake Show will be around here for a long time.
So you don't think they wait to see, make sure what they saw the second half of the year is exactly what they're getting? You don't think they wait and see 16 more games? It may cost them money in the long run during that, but you think they're sold on it now, get it done, no need to wait?
Well, Dave, I can't climb inside of the heads of Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, and Kevin Stefanski, the Ivy League trio. But I would like to think that they're sold. I mean, you saw a guy who was very comfortable in the system. And by the way, when I look at that Chiefs game, I don't blame the Bake Show as much as a lot of guys. I mean, I think he was way down the list of people to blame for the Browns' loss. I thought he played all right, actually, in that game. But Mayfield, to me, did enough to assure or reassure, as the case might be, the hierarchy that he's the guy for the job.
All right, let's move on. Then another guy that has a fifth-year option coming up, Denzel Ward, another guy that head of that draft, 4th overall. What do you do with him? I mean, when he's been on the field, he's been outstanding. But as the old saying is, availability is the biggest ability, and he hasn't been available the entire time.
Yeah, our man Ray Farmer, the best ability is availability. I would be concerned with Denzel Ward. He, as you said, Dave, a marvelous player when he is available. I don't know. I would wait as long as humanly possible on Ward, because I need to see a more consistent, ability to get on the field. It's not that I need to see his talent. I just need to see him showing up game after game after game. So I would wait as long as possible before I made a decision on him.
So you pick up the fifth-year option and you got to hold on Denzel. Let's talk about Nick Chubb. Now, Chubb does not have a fifth-year option, so he's going into the final year of his contract. Conventional wisdom is you don't spend a lot of money on a running back, but Nick Chubb in this system isn't your normal running back. This is a system that features Nick Chubb, for lack of a better term.
That's right, Dave. You can't pay everybody. And even teams that think they have cap space are suddenly not going to have cap space. if they try to pay everybody. And the worst thing you want to get into is salary cap hell, as it were. The Chubb case is fascinating. Today's game backs are devalued, although we would say here that Nick Chubb is an all-world back. We think of him the way the Tennessee Titans think of Derrick Henry, extremely special, but I don't know. I'd have to think long and hard about dumping a lot of money into the running back position, even someone as talented as Nick Chubb.
So I'm pushing you here. You extending him? Is there a limit? You got to make the decision, D-man. We're counting on you. We are counting on you to get us to that Super Bowl, buddy.
I don't want to get yelled at. I really don't want to get yelled at by Browns fans. But man, all right, I got it, because I know where you're going next. So I will say, you pay Mayfield, you pay Chubb, and then you take me where we're going next, and I'll tell you, no, we're not paying.
All right. You're leading me into the wide receivers, where we have $29 million, give or take. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's the Haslam's money, tied up with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. So how are you getting around that?
Well, I'm moving on from Odell, and I know that's anathema to some people. How dare you? And, I just feel like Baker Mayfield can produce at a high level without Odell. I'm not saying he doesn't want to have Odell around. If Odell weren't making a lot of money, I'd say, okay, fine, bring him back. But I think this team showed it can move the ball without him. I would go either draft or free agency for cheap speed guys and move on from Odell.
What about Wyatt Teller? That's a guy that likely played his way into a pretty sizable contract. Pro Football Focus ranks him as one of the top guards in the NFL, and that was a guy that had a battle to get a starting spot a season ago.
Boy, Dave, you are really making it hard on me.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm not a capologist for the Browns. And what's weird, too, is, Dave, we're talking about these talented players that the Browns have. And I guess more so than weird, it's continually agonizing to me that the Browns didn't get further, because we're talking about a team as if they were, a Super Bowl team. And they only won one playoff game, and yet look at all these guys who have to get paid. So it's frustrating. But with Teller, I would put him below Mayfield and Chubb on the priority list as much as I like Teller, and above anything in the wide receiver position.
Yeah, when you look at that offensive line, you have to feel pretty good. I mean, they were plugging guys in basically off the bus, and they were doing the job in playoff games. And don't get me wrong, I love Wyatt Teller, but they have shown the ability to plug in guys on that offensive line.
I don't want to be misconstrued, and neither did you, Dave, that, Wyatt Teller is an enormously important piece, and, he's very valuable, and they were a different team, offensive team, when he was on the field, but still, I think he's got to be lower on the priority list.
Well, I think he may have played himself into a much bigger payday than the Browns might be able to afford, given the money they've given Conklin and Treader at center and Bitonio. Yeah,
Dave, you're right. I mean, that's the other part about it. If it was in a vacuum, you just focused on Wyatt Teller, you say, okay, fine, pay him. But the fact is that he's on a line where other guys have gotten paid, and you're going to have to, pony up for these position players too. So it makes it a case where I think you might be right. He might have priced himself out of the market.
The D-Man and I will be back after a quick timeout. We're going to shift our focus just a little bit. Dennis is a Baseball Hall of Fame voter. We'll talk to him about that voting. Nobody going in this year. We'll also talk a little bit about the Indians, a free agent signing, and the Cavs potentially trying to see if they find a taker for Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A friend of mine brought up Nature Stone.
Our floor was not a nice garage floor. It was cracked and dirty and messy all the time, and now it's just pretty. It's a pretty garage floor.
You could tell they really cared about what they were doing. They did an excellent job.
There's a room of lovely people here that have been so nice to us and so great, and such great service from the guys who did the floor, and we just really appreciate that.
And I highly recommend it.
Schedule your free cost estimate today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. We're going to switch our focus a little bit now from the Browns to the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame voting. Dennis Manoloff, one of the voters here. Dennis, nobody in. My perception is that's a good thing. It keeps kind of the standards high, 75% of the vote required. Nobody got it. A little bit of craziness with Curt Schilling. And take me through just your perception, the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame voting. Nobody got in this year.
Yeah, I was one of the voters. I was one of the 401 who turned in their ballots. Let me first say this, Dave. It's inexcusable to me, and I know this is media on media crime. I'm calling out my former sports writer brethren here, but 14 people turned in blank ballots, and that's just disgusting to me because each blank ballot, each ballot that's turned in counts against the 75% threshold, as opposed to if you sat on your ballot and didn't turn it in, that's not going to punish a potential candidate. So I don't understand why you have to say, look at me when I turn in a blank ballot, as opposed to, okay, I don't think anybody on this ballot is worthy of a Hall of Fame. Fine, take the ballot, crumple it up, and throw it in the garbage. But no, you got to be the show by turning in a blank ballot. So that's idiocy to me. I'll never understand it. I had 6. The max is 10. So I didn't think there were 10 Hall of Fame worthy candidates on this particular ballot. I stuck to what I always do, which is preponderance of evidence PEDs. I don't vote for you. Obviously, positive test PEDs. I don't vote for you. Major league suspension for PEDs. I don't vote for you. And the preponderance of evidence kicked in the case of Bonds and Clemens because Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens never failed an MLB administered drug test. But I read, at least 2 books, Game of Shadows and Love Me, Hate Me, that certainly had a mountain of evidence against Bonds and to a degree Clemens as well. So that was my thinking about the PED guys or the PED suspicions. In the case of Schilling, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I know he's crazy with his social media and his political views, but to me, he's a Hall of Famer. He should have been in a long time ago. It's just the writers holding a grudge against him, and I don't think that's right. And in the case of Omar Vizquel, I voted for him. I turned in my ballot in early December because I didn't want to forget because the deadline was December 31st. Then the story breaks in The Athletic that he's alleged to have committed some domestic violence against his estranged wife, Blanca. That was her allegations. Of course, Omar vehemently denies it, so I'm conflicted. I contacted the Hall of Fame, asked for my ballot back. They said it was logistically pretty much impossible to do that, so the vote was going to stand. So I definitely was conflicted in the Omar Vizquel case, given that the allegations against him came out after I had sent in my ballot.
Let me ask you this. Is there any doubt in your mind that Omar's a Hall of Famer, having seen him? And that's a he said, she said, so let's put that to the side for a minute. Nobody knows whether that's true or not. But you look at some of the guys that are in there, and you look at the numbers that Omar has put up, and it comes from a perspective of seeing him. There's a lot of guys that I look at being in the Hall of Fame, and I'm like, I saw that guy, and I wouldn't describe him as a Hall of Famer. And I look at Omar Vizquel, and I describe him as being a Hall of Famer. He does things that, defensively that you can't really measure, I guess, is the big thing.
I think, Dave, one of the guys you might be referring to is Harold Baines. I mean, to me, if Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame, Omar Vizquel should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, a lot of national guys, a lot of new schoolers who crunch the numbers and have all the data points about, range and arm strength and all that kind of thing, trying to shed new light on the defensive side of it, claim that Vizquel wasn't as good as his bazillion gold gloves and his reputation. And therefore, he doesn't deserve to get in, on top of the fact that he wasn't a great offensive player. He was a compiler, and I don't hold compiling against a player, because I say if you're in a lineup long enough, if you've been able to play 20 plus years to get all those hits that Omar had and all the whatever else he got, then you deserve credit for that, because just to get one hit in the major leagues is an incredible accomplishment. And Omar had, 2,800 plus. So I don't have the issue with him offensively that a lot of people do. I certainly think that the reason I'm voting for him was because of his defense over his offense. But I thought the offense was not a hindrance. It was not something that would stop me from voting for him. And I didn't think that Ozzie Smith was all that dynamic an offensive player. And I've compared Omar to Ozzie, and of course that gets blowback. How dare you compare Omar to the Wizard of Oz? But
I think that's a very fair comparison. That was another place that I was going. If Ozzie Smith's a Hall of Famer, I think Omar Vizquel is. Let's move on to current Indians. So they're going to sign Cesar Hernandez, a free agent. Good ball player. You like that. That's a major league hitter, leadoff hitter. But now you've got Hernandez, Rosario, and Jimenez. Jimenez younger. But those are three guys that play middle infield positions. By my count, he can really only play two of them.
Yeah, and we're not even accounting for a guy who might come along in spring training and surprise people to the point where he might win a job at one of those two spots. But yeah, I mean, it certainly would feel like those are the three lead contenders for two spots. And so that would mean one of them's going to have to go down. Listen, the Indians are going to be okay on the pitching front. I don't think they're going to be dominant on the pitching front, but they're going to be okay. Good. Let's put it this way. They're going to be good on the starting pitching front. They'll cobble together a bullpen, but they're definitely going to be hard-pressed to score runs consistently. You don't just lose guys like Francisco Lindor and Carlos Santana and automatically think that you're going to be fine, no matter who comes in to replace them. Even though Santana had a down year and Lindor didn't exactly tear the cover off the ball last year, those are guys that are going to be very difficult to replace. We don't even know if Jose Ramirez is going to be an Indian by the beginning of the year. I don't know. I mean, you keep hearing rumors that maybe he might get moved, given the salary purge. They got rid of Carlos Carrasco in a straight salary dump. So who knows who's going to be left. They're going to have to scramble to score runs. Hopefully they can pitch well enough to stay competitive in the AL Central.
The D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. We're going to step aside and take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will be joined by Doug Lesmerises, columnist here at cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We'll talk some Browns defense with Doug. More sports and less than legal. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs. And we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Brown's Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week, and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. We're going to shift back to some Browns talk, and let's welcome in Plain Dealer columnist as well as a columnist here on cleveland.com, Doug Lesmerises. Doug, appreciate the time. You wrote a column that I thought was really interesting. 3 moves that the Browns made on offense that shaped the team last year, and you kind of drew a corollary with 3 moves they could make defensively. Take me through this. It was really kind of interesting and just kind of the thought processes as you were putting this together.
So when we talked to Andrew Berry after the season, it was kind of on the idea of could you replicate the success of Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, Austin Hooper, 2 major free agent signings and a first-round pick a year ago. Could you get that same kind of impact on the defensive side of the ball? And, Andrew Berry is very circumspect. I sort of said, could you do that? And he said, well, certainly we could. So I got my quote for the column, but then I just did what I thought. So listen, they're picking late in the draft instead of number 10, so it's a different deal. But you can see how they had clear needs last year, especially at the 2 tackle spots. Tight end, not as much. But could you do that? Could you add somebody in the secondary, add somebody at linebacker, maybe add a pass rusher, depending what happens with Olivier Vernon? I do think it's possible. Maybe not quite as splashy as Wills, Conklin, Hooper, but I think potentially almost as productive and almost as effective in raising the level of this defense. You go from Greg Robinson and Chris Hubbard to Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin. You raise the level of the whole offense. I'm very interested in the guys who not just fill holes, but raise the level of everybody around them defensively.
So who did you identify? You came up with a couple of names. Take us through that.
So the first one is thinking that at linebacker, they clearly they brought in all kinds of guys at linebacker last year. They have about 5 different linebackers they played this year. We know that. B.J. Goodson, Jacob Phillips, Malcolm Smith, Mac Wilson, Sione Takitaki. But only Goodson really was kind of an every down guy. And I think even in coverage, he's a little bit of a question. And now you're making me think of the guy. It's this Tulsa kid, this Zavin kid, right, from Tulsa, who was maybe the best linebacker in the country this year. I think linebacker at 26 this year might line up the way left tackle at 10 lined up that last year. Because there are two big linebackers in this draft. Micah Parsons from Penn State, first of all, and then the Notre Dame kid, who are going to be gone by 26. But I think you can get the third best linebacker in the draft when the Browns pick. We know they don't prioritize linebacker. I think this might be the exact spot for linebacker with their philosophy. Maybe it's not the Tulsa kid. Maybe it's somebody else. But I think you can slide that guy right in as an every down linebacker and change this defense similarly to the way Jedrick Wills changed the offensive line at left tackle. You had the left tackle hole. I think we see the linebacker hole. So that draft pick comparison I thought was worthwhile to at least think about.
And then you also, delineated how you could add, to the line and potentially a safety, I believe is what you were thinking as well.
Yeah. So then the big move, the most Conklin-esque move, I thought, free agency-wise, would be a safety like Anthony Harris from Minnesota. That we saw what Tyrann Mathieu did for the Chiefs in that game against the Browns as a $14 million safety. He's a playmaker. He's all over the field. Again, it's a position where the Browns went cheap with Carl Joseph and Andrew Zendejo last year, and certainly with Ronnie Harrison and Grant Delpit hopefully coming back healthy. You're going to be better at safety anyway. But can you make a big free agency splash that changes everything? Jack Conklin was the highest paid tackle on the market, and he was worth every cent the Browns spent on him this year. And I understand why they didn't pay more for safety this year, but it feels like a position now. I want a Tyrann Mathieu. I think this defense and this team is now at the point where a playmaking safety potentially is worth the money, and there will be some guys out there. It doesn't have to be Anthony Harris from Minnesota. There's actually about 4 or 5 big-time free agent safeties on the market that are going to be potentially available. I think it might be a place for the Browns to spend some money.
The other thing is they flirted with Jadeveon Clowney last year. They had Vernon, but you didn't get the bookends. You never had a healthy Myles Garrett and a healthy guy next to, running opposite him to really create some havoc. Do you think they look to do that potentially? I mean, it might even be in free agency or the draft. They need a bookend.
Yeah, and I think to me it's still, positionally it's the most important thing, right? And I didn't get into corner. It depends what you want to do at cornerback too. They have some good defensive players. They have some clear areas of improvement too. I wonder about the defensive end spot. Olivier Vernon coming off the injury, you don't know what his future is or isn't in Cleveland. But I don't know how big you go there. I don't think to me that was a little more of a luxury pick, which is a little more like the Austin Hooper signing a year ago. Listen, they drafted Harrison Bryant after they signed Hooper, and they had David Njoku. You weren't exactly desperate at tight end the way you were desperate at tackle. I don't know that you're desperate at defensive end when you already have Myles Garrett. But boy, it's a nice luxury. So I said Bud Dupree from Pittsburgh, who's coming off a series.
Yep, Dupree coming off a season-ending injury, so you maybe you get him as a deal. So yeah, that does definitely make some sense.
Maybe.
Yep. Okay, we lost Doug. We'll reconnect with him. We're gonna step aside, take a quick time out. More sports, and Les Levine will continue. Stay with us.
You get a deal, and then.
Shelly, we really need to get Nature Stone in our basement.
I know, Herb, and it would look great in our laundry room, too.
Coach, only Nature Stone is perfect for your basement and laundry room because it never needs replaced like damp carpet and moldy tile. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your basement or laundry room floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Shelly, Nature Stone is perfect for our laundry room and basement.
I told you.
It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine. We believe we have reenacted and contacted with Doug Lesmerises. I got the final word in on you there. I never usually do. So finish your thought. Bud Dupree coming off an injury, I believe is where you were going with that.
The only way you can ever get the final thought on me, I freeze. So listen, Bud Dupree's not a magical answer, but I just don't know that they're going to go for one of the big time pass rushers who might be available there. I don't know if they have the resources that's where you spend it. But if you can find a guy, I said maybe Bud Dupree, maybe Hassan Reddick from Arizona, a guy who maybe get on a shorter-term deal, plug him in there. Listen, Levine Vernon played pretty darn well in the second half of the season. He actually was pretty productive and gave you a decent amount of what you wanted in that second half of the year. But I still think it's not as desperate. I think you could draft there. I think you could try a couple different things. Adrian Claiborne will be back. Porter Gustin's back. You need to do something, but I think it's maybe a little more of a luxury. But I mean, it is one of those things. If you add the right guy there and he's productive, it makes Myles Garrett better too. Just like Austin Hooper was brought here to make Baker Mayfield better.
Well, and there we go. We lost Doug again. So having some issues with our connections down Columbus way with Doug Lesmerises, columnist from here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. And Doug, welcome back. I like the way these are like William Shatner dramatic pauses. You're making your point very well. Let's move on to some difficult decisions. Now, the Browns are going to have to decide, do we give additional contracts? Do we we'll start with Baker Mayfield. I think that one probably was decided. You've been saying that for quite a while. Do you think they pick up the fifth-year option? Do you think they extend him before another year goes on?
I don't know if they do or not. Andrew Berry was kind of, again, circumspect about that. And it's one of those things, again, I don't get too wound up about it. Yes, you want to have a good relationship with the quarterback and everything. I think there's time. I think Mary Kay Cabot's been all over this. I think maybe they wait a little bit. Maybe you don't have to do it right now. Like you said, you pick up the fifth-year option. He's going to be, right? I mean, like he's the answer. He is. But I also don't know that you have to be in a hurry. But that's not complicated. It's a wonderful.
Yeah, without question. Those are the problems that the Browns, quite frankly, haven't had because you haven't gotten a first-round pick that's gotten to the second contract very often. So, really good thing there. Who are some of the guys that you think
about this?
Who are some of the guys that you might not extend that would be coming up? You got Chubb.
They have some of their own.
You got Chubb. Yeah, who do you think they might look at that way?
I think Denzel Ward, right? Denzel Ward is up on the, and I froze a little bit again there, but Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb. I mean, you have multiple guys. I think it starts that we've had I think it's been an interesting discussion about how you pay running backs in this league. Do you want to pay Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb? I think they got Kareem Hunt at a pretty good price, so I think there's room for Nick Chubb. But I think for the Browns, I think the Browns are a special circumstance. I think Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb make each other better. And I think by investing in one, you increase the investment in one by investing in the other. But this is the thing that people have to get used to. There's going to be a core here. Everybody around the core is going to change. You can't get too attached to some of these other guys. Larry Ogunjobi is a name that has come up, and obviously people think maybe his time here in Cleveland is at an end. He's been a good Brown, but they might not be in a place to sign their 8th best defensive player or whatever he is, right? That's just what happens. There was a time when a guy like Larry Ogunjobi would have been at the top of the list of offseason priorities for the Browns, because it's like, who else are they going to pay? But that's the price of being good. And so a guy like that now comes below guys like Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, Baker Mayfield. You already got Myles Garrett signed, but this is the way of the world. This is how successful franchises operate. And there are tough decisions ahead. And there are going to be guys that you really wish would stay who aren't going to stay. And that is the price of success.
Is Ward a guy that you would extend? I mean, or do you want to wait and see? When he's been on the field, he's been outstanding. The problem is he's been injured quite a bit.
No, I think he's trending in the right direction. I mean, I think you're right, but I think, that's sort of what you get when you pick a guy like that. And again, it was John Dorsey who picked him. He's a really productive player. He's what you need. He's a playmaker at corner. I do think he keeps getting better. I think there's more of a ceiling there for him still. And to me, the injuries he's had, the issues he's had, don't rise to the point of making me hesitate on that. I think that's a guy in a premium position where they would go in on that, and I think they will.
When you look at the moves that they need to make to get where they want to go, do you prioritize the defense? Am I hearing you right? It's probably safety that you're looking at first to upgrade to that level that they need to be at?
Yeah, I mean, like a real playmaker, I think, back there in the back end. I mean, to me, not to put too fine of a point on it, but the guy who would come up and shackle Chad Henne before he gained 13 yards on 3rd and 14, right? Maybe it's a linebacker, maybe it's a safety, but a guy like that, Tyrann Mathieu, when he was doing that for the Chiefs, like he put the offense on it. He's attacking the offense. I mean, I think a guy like that, a Myles Garrett type player on the back end, because even a corner, Denzel Ward's going to go cover a receiver and try to shut a guy down on a play. But a linebacker or a safety who makes a quarterback think, I think that's the next move for this defense. I understood why they didn't have that this year. But I think now that they're a winning team, now that they're a playoff team, how do you become a Super Bowl team? And I think a move like that might be one of the main ways that you do it.
Do you subscribe to the theory that a lot of people believe that, getting from where the Browns are now, a playoff team, to that Super Bowl team is even harder than it is getting from, a team that's trying to get to the playoffs from 6-10, 8-8 to getting into the playoffs? Is taking that step to the elite level even more difficult?
No, I don't think so. I mean, man, what's been harder? What's been harder than getting to the playoffs for the Browns? Well, I don't think it's going to take 20 years, right? It's not going to be another 18-year gap before they maybe get to a Super Bowl. Listen, they're going to be good for an extended period of time. They're not going to make the playoffs every single year, right? That happens. They're going to have some bumps. They're going to have some bad luck. They're going to have some injuries. But I do think they can make that next step. I do think that when you saw the Los Angeles Rams when Sean McVay got there and they made the playoffs, and then they became a Super Bowl team. They didn't win it, but getting there. I think that's the path. I think, the Philadelphia Eagles, you get some stuff in there, you get to a Super Bowl. You need some luck, but I think they are a legitimate, absolutely, they are a true legitimate 10, 11, 12 win team, for sure. This was not a fluke this year, and they can get better. We all see where they can get better. They're not tapped out. This is not their ceiling. So I do not think this is some kind of impossible next step. Now, you got to get past Mahomes. And I was just talking with somebody the other day. You don't want to think about it. You don't want Patrick Mahomes to be the new John Elway, who started beating the Browns in the playoffs when he was 26, I think, and Patrick Mahomes is 25. We get it. But I also think the Browns, and I'm eventually going to write this. I've been mucking around with it all week. I think you could make a case that the Browns are the 3rd best team in football. Because was there anything the Bills did against the Chiefs that the Browns didn't do? The Bills got a free touchdown on a fumbled punt at the 1-yard line. The Browns got a touchdown taken away because they fumbled up the 1-yard line. And they played with the Chiefs just as much as the Bills did. And I know Mahomes didn't get hurt, but even up to the point where Mahomes got hurt against the Browns, they were just as competitive as the Bills were. Who else in the AFC besides the Chiefs are you sure is better than the Browns? You're sure? You're sure the Ravens are better? They played that Monday night game where they went head-to-head. You saw the Ravens in the playoffs against the Bills. Are you sure the Ravens are better? Pittsburgh's not better anymore. Is Tennessee better? Browns beat them. Is Indianapolis better? Browns beat them. Miami better? No. And then in the NFC, who impresses you in the NFC? All right, the Bucs have the greatest quarterback of all time. The Packers, the Browns got heat for playing an easy schedule this year. The Packers played an easy schedule. You saw the Packers have red zone problems at the worst time against the Bucs. Are you sure the Browns couldn't beat the Packers? Seattle's defense is awful. Browns couldn't beat the Seahawks. I think they are in the conversation. All right, Kansas City won, and I'll give you Tampa 2 because I got Brady. I think the Browns are in that mix right there. Third best team in the NFL, and I think they can get better.
Doug Lesmerises, so we're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Doug and I will be back for one more segment. On the other side of it, more sports. And Les Levine will continue. Stay with us.
Shelley, our garage floor is just awful.
I know. We really need Nature Stone.
Cracks, uneven concrete, it's slippery.
I keep telling you, we need Nature Stone.
Coach, only Nature Stone solves all those problems. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your garage floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Herb, Nature Stone fixed every problem in our garage.
I told you.
It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports, and Les Levine continues, and we continue to talk Browns football with Doug Lesmerises, columnist here on cleveland.com, as well as in the page of the Plain Dealer. Doug, you made the case that the Browns were the third best team in football before we went to break. As coming back
you didn't
from
see that coming, did you? You didn't see that coming. Drop that bomb on you.
My question is, do you believe that with the defense as it's currently constructed? That's where I was going with that.
So listen. Most teams have flaws. You know, Seattle has Russell Wilson. They couldn't stop anybody. We saw the Titans defense this year. They couldn't stop anybody. Colts had a good defense. Phillip Rivers is old, right? They're going to get a new quarterback. So teams are going to change in the offseason, right? You put Matthew Stafford in Indianapolis, come back, and we'll talk about who the third best team in football is, right? But I think that's the part of it that I think sometimes got lost this year is we did spend a decent amount of time, I feel like, this year talking about the flaws of the defense. As if sometimes not every team has a flaw. Every team does have a flaw. This was a very productive top to bottom offense. Run game, pass game in a way that a lot of teams don't have.
Yeah.
Everyone, the fact that the Browns have one of the 10 best defensive players in football, maybe better in Myles Garrett. And they have other stuff to fill in around it. But I do think, believe it or not, after all the heartache the Browns have caused fans over 20 years, I am in the business now of reminding people that other teams have problems too. And that you look at the Chiefs and you think, oh my gosh, the Chiefs. Listen, man, everybody's got something, maybe other than the Kansas City. But their defense, they don't have to have like a top 5 defense, I think, to be a Super Bowl team. Got to get better. but it can get better. It will be better. Next year's defense for the Browns is absolutely going to be better than this year's defense. How can it not be? We saw all the flaws. We saw where they didn't spend money, and they're going to spend it. They didn't have Grant Delpit. Hopefully he'll be back, right? They had a lot of weird injuries this year, the COVID year. It's going to be better. And so all these things, like I'm not saying they're a perfect team. I'm saying there really aren't any perfect teams. So let's realize how good the Browns are. And again, you can find a lot of teams. We also saw Kevin King from the Packers get smoked like 4 times by Tom Brady in that game. It's like, how do the Packers have this guy in coverage moments with the NFC Championship game on the line? And if the Browns would have been in the same spot, it would have been driving Browns fans crazy. Packers were the 1 seed, man.
The other thing is, do you have the faith in this front office to upgrade it? I mean, and I would agree with you. Just based on what they did last year, there was a method. It was not happenstance. There was a plan. They executed their plan. I would expect they will have the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Fair to expect, do you think?
I do think it is fair to expect. Now, not every, they're going to have to keep doing this. I keep saying every year when you project the Browns starters in the offseason, like starter number 19, 20, 21, 22 is going to be Andrew Berry, 1-year free agent, that you're going to have to trust him, that there's going to be a Carl Joseph or a B.J. Goodson or a Malcolm Smith or an Andrew Zendejo or a guy like that they're going to have to fill in, okay? So we don't know if that's going to be. I thought those guys were okay. I mean, like the Delpit injury really hurt the safeties. Everybody kind of moved up a spot higher than they should have been. Ronnie Harrison for a 5th-round pick, making $1 million a year, that's a great deal. So I do think they'll be okay, but I think people should have the faith, because I think when you look and where we started this conversation, Dave, when you look at how they spent the money on Conklin last year, couldn't be better. Wills, now listen, you actually had a bunch of tackles available there that all worked out. If they would have taken Mekhi Becton or Tristan Wirfs, that probably could have worked too, because they both had great years. But Jedrick Wills worked. They didn't whiff on that. They found a guy who's probably their 10-year left tackle with the 10th pick. That's great. Hooper, not as productive statistically as Atlanta last year, but he did his job. Pretty good blocker on the field a lot, right? So I do think you should have faith in Andrew Berry. And that in the end, and people have said this, and I'm on my list of things to write this offseason, really, your big 4 is your quarterback, your defensive star, your head coach, and your general manager. So much else is going to flow around that. And so, yeah, I mean, go ahead and fall in love with Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward and guys like that. They're going to be here for a long time. But really, bottom line, as this goes forward, it's really going to be about Baker, Miles, Kevin Stefanski, and Andrew Berry. And I think Browns fans should have faith in all 4 of them.
Last thing I'll ask you. Most impressive thing, biggest question mark that the Browns answered this year for long-term success. What do you think it was? And you can give me more than one.
Yeah, so the thing they answered long-term, I do think this is not a surprise, but what they did on the offensive line, I mean, I don't know that there is a line that is that good and that young still. And that you can see how most of it, at least, is going to be together for a while. So that I thought was so impressive, because I just thought the tackle play fed into so many of the offensive problems in 2019, and maybe the lack of confidence by Baker. And when you solved that the way they did with Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, it just opened everything. So I thought that was incredibly important to get that fixed.
All right.
They don't have 5 guys on the offensive line that they believe in, that have 3 or 4 guys and not 5, and they'll tell you how important the offensive line is. We've been there with the Browns a lot. When you lock in 5 guys like that, it makes everything else about your team work.
Doug Lesmerises, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine. We will see you again tomorrow night. Dan Lobby, Browns beat reporter from here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer, will be our guest. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow night.